So good to have you join us again on another edition of our weekly magazine program on television, Deltascope, a platform where we play host to economic, social and political stakeholders in the Delta State Development Project. My name is Onome Yarwe, your host. This week on the program, we are playing host to Dr. Chris EKIYOR. Dr. Chris EKIYOR is one great man, highly cerebral. He is a non-violent activist, one who is involved in so many agitations, non-violent agitations for the betterment of the Niger Delta region. He holds various peace awards. He is indeed a peace ambassador. Our interview with Dr. Chris EKIYOR exposes us to so much, and I know that you want to see. He is also a renowned dental surgeon. Dr. Chris EKIYOR has played so much role in the peaceful agitation for the betterment of the Niger Delta region, especially, and by way of extension, agitating for the youth of Nigeria. This interview with him brought so much to us that we would love to see what he has achieved with his office, what he has achieved in his personal life as a peace ambassador and non-violence activist. This is one interview that I call a must-see.
So this is me. I was born in Port Harcourt and started primary school early in Port Harcourt, but later relocated to my village with my mom. My dad was, of course, a polygamist, so my mom was the one that collected the bash to stay in the village. So we had to move with her to avoid the conflict of two wives, and so she moved to Patani. It was lovely. It was a small town then. Yeah, it was a small town, but it was bigger than Ughelli. It was bigger than Ughelli at that time. Ughelli was just that small market area. You have Otodo standing on his own. You have a Delta Glass, a Cubo on his own. So now they are all in metropolitan, so they're big. And Patani was next to Onitsha in terms of market. There were no roads. All the roads to the creeks ended in Patani. So for you to go to anywhere else, even people going to Warri come through. If you're not on the highway, you're coming from Onitsha, you get to Patani and then connect to Warri by boat. You're going to Bayelsa, there's no bridge, so you have to stop in Patani and then connect to Yenagoa or Kayama or by boat. So it was a bustling little town.
What made Patani?
That was it. It was a hub. It was a commercial hub and a transport hub. So everybody needed to go into the creeks of the Niger Delta. Ended in Patani. It was a terminus. So you could have bus coming all the way from Lagos, ended in Patani, and then they now jumped the boats into Bomadi, into the creeks, and the people from the creeks saw Patani as their major city. Yes. So they were coming to township in Patani. The Patani people were going to Lagos. And then when people started going to Lagos, the Patani people started going to London. And at the end of the day, it's a civil servant town now today. But then it was a village. We had one primary school, one secondary school. But it was good enough that Ijaw men used to send their children back from Lagos to come to Prosa Grammar School in Patani. Yeah, they used to come back there because the teaching was standardized. They had a wonderful principal or two wonderful principals that were very popular. Those days were the era of common entrance, and then you pass and then they send you to some federal government schools. The quota system was, the bender was very high, so I did very well. And there was a school, they say, a federal government college in some far place, I can't remember, too young. My father was kicking against it. That no, they would get me maybe somewhere. My sister had gone to FGC on so looking at Port Harcourt and all of that. He was kicking against it. Then my uncle came visiting. He was a police officer, and I said, yeah, they go down not to. I cried and cried. I said, it's okay, I should go with him. Gave him all my credentials and everything to look for any federal school that would take me around. So it was not just Federal Government College Mina or GSS Rijau, which was a unity school for the state. So he was closer to Rijau than he was in Kontagora. So he just got me to that one. It was a science secondary school. But then eventually after secondary school, I came back to Benin and attended IC to sharp up my studies, my skills.
That's GSS
Rijau in Niger State. Yeah, so that's actually where I'm an old boy. After that, I went to IC for, to just what they used to call A-level, but it wasn't A-level. I went for remedials. Okay. So to write my papers again and all of that. I spent a year in IC, went to lectures to Rote, and then went to the University of Benin. Of course, that was the first time I went to a city school. University of Benin is one of the top grade universities, well sorted after.
You say that with pride, don't
you? Yeah, well sorted after. I say so because I just only didn't attend. I went to the medical school. of the University of Benin, and I just didn't just go to medical school. I was student union president of that great university. So for me, it was the molding block of my formative character in terms of activism. So I was in Congress from year 1 to year 6. So every time I was in Parliament, articulating and either for or against policies of school, and so I got a lot of popularity in Parliament, and it was just a walkover to be student union president. I stayed on the course, and I was open and transparent to my philosophy. Is that if I'm agreeing with an issue, it's because it is the ideal thing to do. So when I decided to run for student union president, there were 10 candidates, but I think it was a landslide for me. The joy was that I added value in student welfare, in unionism, and in the university community. I pride myself as one of the best presidents at the university that I've produced, and it's there, people say it. Long after I'd left, I'm still a reference point for leadership in that university. It meant I'd done well. Now, what did I do differently? I did the non-violent approach to things. So there was still resistance to bad governance, but it was a direct action approach. There was a law we made, superior logical argument. So if the university wins logically, we give it to them. If we win, and I think 80% of the time.
And that has carried you to this point.
Yeah.
After that, you went to Futo.
Futo was much later in life. After I'd been IRC president, I graduated from med school, went into my practice. We did a lot of public health work that spurred my interest in public health. So I went to do a master's in Futo in public health to improve on that aspect of mine. And I'm running a PhD in the same school. Also, as a business manager, I went to Deltascope while I was a commissioner here to go and try and do an MBA. Of course, I finally got the MBA. Well, I did an MBA, so I did an MBA, so that I'm well positioned to play around any kind of administrative business I find myself. It's helping me in my private life, it's helping me in governance responsibility.
Let's talk about your presidency in IYC. What did you bring in new, and what did you sustain? Did you change the face of the Izon youths?
Yes, it did. I made the decision to run for the Joint Council at the time it was formed. That was in 1990. I made the decision that I was going to lead this organization. So it was also in my 200 level that IYC was formed in Kayama. I was president of the Joy Students. I had gone to some of the early meetings. And on that day, they declared the Black Saturday. I was in Patania and was part of the young people who blocked the Express Road and said, look, no vehicles will move. Government must allow us to control our resources.
Was it the
Declaration. Yeah, the Black Saturday, 30th December 1998, yes. And so we stopped Patani. We held a lot of vehicles in, but my father was also a mobilizer. He was a retired policeman, so he knew the consequence of breaking the law. So he intervened. He came to us, and because it was my father, I listened. As far back as that time, I already knew that I would want to lead that organization. So the conflicts of the 1996, the conflict of 1998, all of that, I kept following through. Men, I walked the ladder up, studied Asari, studied John, and then I decided that I was going to run. It wasn't without a price to pay. I was running at the time where the conflict was at the height. The Niger Delta youth have been branded as militant criminals, and anybody who was from the Niger Delta, whether you were a Joe or not a Joe, anyway, it wasn't different. They don't write it on your face. They just look at 3, 4, 5 years together. The military will just pick you, slam you with any kind of story. So I went in and decided to chest out for it. The first mission was to also engage government with superior logical argument and justify some of the action. The second mission was to get our people to understand that guns alone can't win the war. The guns are making the noise, but somebody needs to interpret those noise. I got, first of all, the intellectuals and the struggle together at the round table and explained to them that this we can do. Some didn't like it, some kicked against Amnesty, they will arrest all of us. I said, no, it's a way to go. We will negotiate it and get government to commit to it. And Tompolo was the first person who bought it. He said, look, we have been fighting for so long, I think we can give a window, especially with Jonathan as the vice president now. Maybe we can use him. So he was the one who engaged Jonathan, and then from there we opened a discussion with the federal government. It was 2 years of lengthy discussion. All I did was to bring in logical thinking into agitations. Where we are now is not what we had planned. The program was that we take a break from the confusion that is this conflict. Why government is building the capacity of these 30,000 people who were restive, government should concurrently build infrastructure in the Niger Delta to accommodate even the capacity that you're building in 30,000. And there were more non-violent people who were just patiently waiting, more educated and waiting. In fact, it was a three-pronged thing. There was the issue of equity in the oil and gas sector. Yar'Adua approved it, 10% equity for communities in the oil and gas, executive approval. All we needed was National Assembly to okay it. That in the JV, a percentage will be seeded out for communities. Now, that percentage is not going to go to communities. It's going to be used to invest directly in oil-producing community in terms of infrastructure. So the JV will build those infrastructures in those communities with 10% equity, the way they are building their shell camps, their shell estates, their shell platforms, with that standard. So you have 10% of the equity money annually to be declared, 1 trillion on equity. Then all the communities say, okay, a roadmap. We'll build this here, we'll build this here, they'll build, finish, hand over to community. And government will supervise the implementation of it. They could have been schools, they could have been hospitals, it could have been roads, could have been power plants, things that would benefit everybody. And then we had, that was the 10%, we had the Amnesty prong, which had to do with taking people away from conflict, rehabilitate, reintegrate them back to society. That prong includes spending money on the militants as a living wage while you are training them. When you finish training them, you build their capacity and they exit the program. Nobody's exiting all this while. They just keep recycling the process. We had the last prong, which was the infrastructural prong, that actually gave rise to the Ministry of Niger Delta creation. That prong was to create that ministry so that funds accruing from excess crude saved from the conflict. Now, because oil production will increase, a percentage will be voted into the Ministry of Niger Delta as a budget with a specific interest to build a coastal structure. Individually, each state will do something. NDDC will do things in the state, but the Niger Delta Ministry have been doing further projects across the 9 states. For instance, it was going to be a rail track running from Ondo all the way. We'll just hook it up wherever the nearest place, hook it up and run it all the way, maybe extend it to Lagos from Ondo. There are going to be a high-rising building. 9 new towns were approved, 1 in each state on the coastal shoreways, where you build so that the oil companies can actually use that as their hub in locating. You choose which of the sites you like and stay. Particularly if Mobil should be in Uyo, Shell should be in Warri or Port Harcourt, Chevron should be in Warri, Texaco should be in Warri. Like that. You just choose wherever you have this modern town with high-rising buildings where your workers can stay. It's secured. You have the bars. Then the ports should have been active. Calabar, Warri, Port Harcourt, One. So all those things were on, but nobody supervised, nobody is implementing. The 10% was never done. Those new towns were never built. Nobody cared. The truth is that if we don't quickly change the narrative and get the right people, the right thinkers to manage the Ministry of Niger Delta, the Amnesty program, and indeed the NDDC, government will just be throwing money like in an ocean. Yeah. So you will not really see a few pocket-rich contractors or politicians will emerge, because they will fight these monies for their personal gains.
So let's go to your stewardship as a commissioner, one-time commissioner for commerce and industry in Delta State.
Okay, I think that was, like they say, the reward for hard work is more work. So I've been council chairman in Patani.
At the point you were a capital chairman.
Yeah. After the flood, I was doing community outreach in the flood, intervening in the disaster, because we're cut out from government and everybody. And nobody seemed to be talking about pertaining to the Delta State government. So I went in, I stepped in with my team. We're there for 40 days on the flood, doing stuff, taking deliveries. My team was putting it on Facebook, so Governor Duan saw it on Facebook and put a call across to me. Chris, what's happening there? And I told him. Meanwhile, they were blackmailers that were trying to contest with, and I explained all that happened. He said, you mean nobody's there? So he sent the then deputy speaker, Basil Gana to come. Basil came, saw it, and they went back. So I think after the flood, on his own, unilaterally, against all political norms, he appointed me transition committee chairman. I said, this man who's been working by himself to build this place, even build homes for people, can put government money to genuine use. I think that was the idea behind it. And of course, I think I did exactly that. I outperformed his expectation. So when our tenure was 2 years, once our tenure was up and where election had been conducted and we're leaving, he appointed me commissioner to a ministry too that has been moribund. I call it moribund because at that time when I got to the ministry, there was really nothing happening. It was just a conventional ministry. We needed to upgrade and upstart the office. Luckily, there were certain requests made. I had to go work the papers up, dust them up. We started from there. We first of all create a worker-assured environment by rebuilding, redesigning the offices, and not just the commissioner's office. Because most times the commissioners can't make their place too comfortable. I went beyond that. We ended with the drivers. We went from mine to heads of department to PAMSEX to drivers. So for the first time in many years, the drivers now felt like, okay, we have an office. Then there was increased enthusiasm from the staff to work. So staff that were not coming to work before started coming to work. Then I went to capacity building. I had small conferences with my staffs. The field officers were invited. So we're in the field, never coming to work, just they were invited. We're given new schedules, new assignments. and the ministry kicked up in a way that Ministry of Commerce became like as active, and we got a private sector driven intervention, and we had our first and the most and only successful trade fair in Delta within 7 months. It was an election commissioner. We were also preparing for this incoming administration, so there were limited time to do that. I thought that my appointment as a commissioner came as a result of the work I had done in Patani, so they just gave me an additional work, and I did my best to turn the place around. I'm sure if you walk into the ministry and ask about my stewardship, they'll be in a better position, just anybody on the corridor.
Hi, welcome to my new Delta. This past 4 years has been so amazing with Senator Dr. EKIYOR as governor. Lots of entrepreneurial and world opportunities has been created in the state. Infrastructural development in all sectors. Over 200 roads have been completed, highways and urban roads. Primary health care has greatly been improved upon. Now you can get health support with ease. Even the educational sector was not left behind. It has received tremendous boost. The state has now become a sport destination. This past 4 years has been so amazing in Delta State. Who knows what the next 4 years will look like? Come with me, let's create a stronger Delta with Senator Dr. EKIYOR, my governor.
I remember you making a statement then that the moribund industry was going to be turned around. You mentioned on the Bender Steel Company and the Uzuri Gary factory.
Yeah,
you say you're going to turn them around.
Yeah.
And you never did.
No, we did. They just sold the Uzuri cassava processing mill now. There was a fund, 30 million. It was there in the bank that has been tied down. The bank won't release the money. The government didn't talk about the money anymore. So the bank was just, I went to the governor and said, I'm not asking you for new money. There's a fund that you voted as in this special account for this. Authorize the release of that fund, let's revamp. So they did. We revamped the Uzuri cassava processing mill. It was actually to produce industrial starch.
Yes.
And we started with 5 metric tons. We moved up to 10, and we got companies in Lagos demanding for those 10. So every month we were able to deliver 10 metric tons of industrial starch to a particular industry. What we did was to run it as a parastatal. I found someone who was a retired general manager in Beden Feeder for me to provide administrative responsibility, and we put teams together, and so they fixed the machines, and it rolled until I left. It was rolling until even a year after I left. It was running auto, so because they were able to work, pay themselves, maintain the facility, and it wasn't a burden anymore to government. We gave them a startup grant, and they were to recycle that grant. And for us, we expected that we'll move from 10 metric tons to 20, because they had a capacity of 25. And then we'll supply not just industrial starch. We're planning that they will start bagging starch in bags. You know, the conventional, traditional way is to put it around plantain liver. So we're now bagging in bags so we can then export or sell locally in shops from the cassava Uzuri mill. And then it was a big market for local farmers. Everybody already had off-take buyers for their cassava. At the time, I was even afraid that, we buy all the cassava, there will be no guy in the market. So I said we have to do a farm plan with them. We need to empower them with cassava seedlings, let them produce more, support them so we can buy a percentage and they can use a percentage for Gary. Because we're now consuming all that we produce around that local area. We're even coming as far as Ababo to now look for cassava. So it was working, and they just sold it to, incidentally, Askia was the pioneer chairman who initiated that project. He's also among the projects. I know he knows the viable project, so that's why he went for it.
Now what about
the Bender Steel, a monumental edifice that is line wasted. It has the capacity to do a lot of things and needs a lot of money to get it to run. That kind of fund was not going to be available in 7 months. But we did the assessment and we wrote our proposal. The options were that it could be a PPP. Let government sell our shares to very interested who want to buy or invest in steel and keep just maybe 25% as shareholding for its own asset, and let the company turn itself. It has capacity to build badges and do certain things that some steel companies don't have. But in my underground notes, those things were very clear. I handed over to my palm sec and I said, look, these are the way to go, the roadmaps. If we do A, we can do B, we can do C, and then we did our feasibility and business plan, and we knew it was working.
You set up
RAHI. RAHI is an acronym for Rural Africa Health Initiative, and we use the acronym to register with the CAC as RAHI Medical Outreach.
Okay. What was the thought behind it, and what has it achieved?
Well, I'm also a JCI senator, so part of my training is to identify gaps, see the need, take the lead. And as a young doctor, going back and forth, home to school, I knew that healthcare was a big issue for our people in Niger Delta. If you had appendicitis, for instance, which can be done for as low as 40,000 to this price, maybe yesterday's price was 15,000, as low as 40,000 in a government hospital. In the village, like in Akrenkoko or like in Letugbene, you need to be taken by boat to Yenagoa. That boat cost, first of all, collects that 30,000. Then you get to Yenagoa, you need to now begin to naively struggle for space, competing with those living in Yenagoa. And then, if you are not able to go to government hospital, you go to private hospital, they then charge you like 100,000 for those surgeries. So we thought that we could do something, take healthcare to the communities. So I put together doctors with surgical skills, went to source for funds. Our first benefactor was, of course, the Deltascope. I was RIC president, so I could say that I used my position to appeal to Okreka to say, look, we can do this and we can start with your people. And he gave us the window to try to start something in Akrenkoko and Ojobo. I chose the Ojobo clinic and gave my colleague the Akrenkoko clinic. So we revamped Ojobo clinic and we did our first procedure in 2007. It was wonderful. We saw over 5,000 patients, sick people. We did over 100 surgery. We were there for 9 days. And then the team pulled out and we left some supervising team for another 10 days. From there, I think Timi Alaibi, MD of NGC, identified what we're doing and said, well, Chris, you're doing this. NGC is doing this, but they're not going to the creeks. Would you want to go to the creeks? He also created a program for me, Emergency Response Services. So they released some funds. We go to everywhere where there are medical emergencies. We moved in. That's how we combed the creek, and I realized that we could do more. So I started writing proposals to international donors, to multinational companies. Of course, Mobi did some few things with us at the time. Then some private individuals also started saying, look, can you support our community? And I said, okay, we have some medication. Can you give us where to stay, provide some logistics so we can come? So I had volunteers who were willing to come. That gap also was why we set hospital, because we realized that there are some surgeries we can't really do at the creeks. So we needed to refer them to hospitals and they were billing them too high. So we set up our first practice in Benin. We then started referring cases to Benin, where we still do, you just pay the surgeon's fee, pay for your medication, and then you are home.
How impactful?
Yeah, it's not, in terms of profit to me, I think we're not there yet. But in terms of delivering what we set to deliver, we're on top of our game. We do all kinds of surgeries in all our centers. The day we opened the paternity hospital, we did a myomectomy that would have cost that patient 380,000 in Yenagoa for free.
It's a committee, a non-violent committee.
Delta State Advocacy Committee against oil pipeline vandalization,
Right, yes.
and so and oil and gas facility vandalization. So we engaged also through non-violent approach to put the Avengers on hold. We have begged them and appealed to them to wait for government to respond. Part of their growth was the Maritime University. It's already been approved and being worked on. Then we were able to do that also because of our experience. Deputy Governor, incidentally, is part and parcel of the Joint Council. He cannot dissociate himself. He's now, Big Brother Africa, so he's in government, but he's part and part of the job. He feels the same pain, so he was part of the struggle. He's an advocate, read law, and pursued some struggles. So he's very familiar with the terrain too, so it was easy for him to chair that committee. And because of his status as deputy governor, they needed somebody who could go beyond where government will allow. So I was appointed secretary. So we went, strange enough, he went everywhere with us and provided a robust platform for engagement. And because of his caliber of person and personality, it was easy to also access the multinationals to a meeting. So if a deputy governor of state is insisting we must meet with the companies, they listen. If it had just been only me, who is this person, another youth leader? So it was a government committee, so the deputy governor was there in capacity of representing the governor. So government must be sensitive to the yearnings of its people and be more responsive. Government does that, and the people, I can assure you, will align.
Okay, now we're talking about stronger Delta. You've been part of the struggle, you've been part of the citizens, you've been part of the government. What would be your own input for a stronger Delta?
Yeah, Maybe perhaps when I become governor one day, or president one day, or where I'm the chief executive of an agency where I can take decisions flexibly, like I did as council chairman, then you'll be able to see how we're able to transform communities even with little resources. Governance is not easy for anybody, but again, the whole thing about governance will depend on the man who calls the shot at every level of government. Delta is a reflection of Governor Okowa's stance today. Everything that we're doing in Delta will be centered and driven across the idea of the man who is leading. And that's the problem of the polity that we do in Africa. Most African countries have that wired. In America and in Europe, it is not that way. It is the people that decide what happens in government. Look at Brexit. It's still on, and two heads have rolled on Brexit. Look at Trump's wall in Mexico, and look at Trump's policies. The Supreme Court is dealing with it. Can any court stop a governor or the president of the country from doing what he wants to do? He will just disobey the court order and continue. At best, he will just bring the soldiers and position them and do what he wants to do. It's only the people, therefore, that can stop a government. So I would charge the people to begin to ask for more accountability of their resources. Let's look at the Koza pastor. The congregation kicked him out. He's out. So if the people begin to say, no, you can't build a school when we need a mosque. No, you can't build a mosque when we need a school. No, you can't appropriate to yourself 6-7 official vehicles when there are no vehicles in the hospital. No, you can't travel abroad on business class anymore. Where people can go to the airport and sit on it and say, no wrong, we know these flights won't travel anywhere. Just what you call a direct action. People can go to government and say, you can't go to work today unless you address the yearnings of school children. But it shouldn't be violently done. It should be done in a direct action. I was telling a professor of university, I said, listen, when you started regulating student union, you thought that you were doing yourself good. You have destroyed activism. So we are throwing people into the society who cannot stand up against oppressive tendencies. Right. In the days back, you get your baptism of fire in the university, so you are articulated enough to come outside and be in the labor unions and say, no, no, no. Today's students don't even have unions. They have rickety association put together by the university and regulated by the university. So they'll come out without any temerity to be able to say, this is wrong, or no, they are over careful to a fault. And Nigerians are beginning to take the back seat about just enjoying whatever it is and say, concern me. And it is God that gives power. It is God that blesses people. So I'm not bothered.
Okay. Dr. Chris, thank you. It's been nice talking with you.
Thank you very much.
My kind of interviews, when you play host to cerebral personalities like this, you have to be up and doing. And it brings this feeling of nostalgia. Kudos to Dr. Chris EKIYOR for coming on our show, Deltascope. Well, we'll draw the curtain here because the much we've learned from Dr. Chris EKIYOR is enough to take us for another 1 week. And so for your comments, observations, and contributions, you can please reach us on our social media platforms as displayed on your screen. Next week, we'll be back here for another edition of Deltascope. Remember to join us then. On behalf of the producer and the production team, my name is Onome Iyarowe. Bye now.